in the selling world, coaching is the most critical element to success.
Okay.
The ability to see what your folks are doing, to engage with them, becomes so impactful to their success. But there's a layer above the coaching.
Okay.
Right? That I believe that there's an obligation as a leader who really is dedicated to their people, is that you've got to get above the task. And that's what I mean. You've got to sit down with your folks and talk about bigger goals than just the target that they're going to achieve. But what does the target achievement mean to them?
Yeah.
And how do we then mentor them through those processes to get there, right? It's not just hey, I'm going to help you close this deal and learn a couple of tricks along the way, but you have a goal to achieve something in the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that need to happen in order for you to get there. Your mentor is your guide through that process to get to that point. A coach is focused in on what's this near-term thing we've got to do. It's focusing in on how do we grow them, right? Not just coach them in the near term, but how do I get them further?
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Future of Selling podcast this week. We certainly appreciate you being here. In this podcast, we really dive into trends, challenges, innovations, things that are shaping the sales landscape. I'm your host. My name is Rick Smith. I'm the Chief Customer Officer at Concur. Concur is a sales communications platform that lives directly inside of Salesforce. We work with some of the largest enterprise companies in the world. I've been in and around sales much of my career, a lot of time in client success. Also serving as a Chief Operating Officer, CEO, CRO, and now Chief Customer Officer here at Concur. But enough about me. Let me introduce our guest today. So our guest is the wonderful, the great, the awesome Brian Kludas. So Brian has done a number of things over his career, and from working in the motion picture industry. And believe me, there's a lot of really good stories from that. I don't know if we'll get into any of those today, but we might. You never know what might come up, right? But there are some great stories there. But he did a lot of time there, but then at some point transitioned into the sales world, right? And spent a lot of time in sales itself and kind of carrying a bag, right? But also spent a great deal of time in sales enablement. The largest portion of Brian's career, or as far as that I've known him, it was spent at Axiom Salesforce Development, now renamed Axiom Sales Kinetics, right? And so Brian started there about, I think, over 12 years ago as a trainer. And then a VP of customer success, VP of operations, kind of took that piece over, and that's where we met, right? And so we worked together for a long time, and I believe we forged a pretty good partnership and really a great friendship over the years. You've been here now at Concur for about 6 months. You made an incredible impact on the company and our clients as well. So, Brian, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks, Rick. This is really fun. Thank you for that intro. Wow, it makes me sound like I've got more experience than I feel like I do sometimes. But thank you so much. And I agree. You and I over the years, and I love the fact of what we're going to get into in our topic today, because it's such a perfect one for you and I and the relationship that we forged over the years. So Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I agree. Well, it's good to get you on. I know we've been talking about doing this for a couple of months, and that topic that we're going to talk about today, we kind of kicked around a couple of things, and we really wanted to get into mentorship and just the power, the impact of mentorship, and how that relates to the sales industry. And but I'm sure we'll stray away from that a little bit, but that's kind of the main focus. But before we get started, I always like to kind of throw in a couple of fun facts, right, about our guests, right? Just because, it's one thing to know about your background, your professional background, that's all cool and everything. But I just have this sense that people want to know more. Like, tell me about Brian as a human. So I pulled out a couple because I know you pretty well. I've known you for a while.
Let's do it. I'm really curious. I'm real curious.
Fun fact number one, the one I'm probably the most envious of, is that and tell me if I get this wrong, right? When you were 16 years old, you spent, I believe it was a full summer backpacking across Europe. Is that right? Did I get the numbers right and all that kind of stuff? So, okay.
Yeah, it was right around that age, and I was by myself. I didn't go with anybody else. It was just me. Incredible experience. I mean, living on your own at 16 in a foreign country. I don't know that I would let my 17-year-old do that today. I don't know what my parents were thinking.
Yeah, I'm not going to question it, but I just know that I'm like, I would have loved to have done that. So anyway, fun fact number one, you are a world traveler. And that's really cool. You are also, and we share this kind of passion, this love together, right? But you're also a follower, and I'd say even a practitioner, if I can say that, of Stoic philosophy. We talk about this quite a bit. So I think that's really interesting. We have a common favorite author, and we kick around. Matter of fact, you even sent me a really cool coin the other day, or it been a couple of months ago, I guess. But anyway, you're a big Stoic philosopher guy. Cool fun fact there. Your wife has like one of the coolest names ever. Fantasia, right? I mean, it doesn't get. I mean, I don't know what name you could have that would be more fun than that. But it's good.
Oh, well, when I tell you her maiden name, that's when it gets really fun. So it's Fantasia Darling.
Wow, how about that?
Right? And then for some reason she liked me well enough to take my name, which sounds like you've got a really bad cold and you're coughing something up.
Yeah,
So she goes from being a Disney princess in movie
yeah,
to still being amazing, but just sounding like she has a cold when she says her last name.
yeah. It's all
So
good. It's go with the first name. First name is awesome. It's great. So normally I only give three, but I had a fourth one here for you just because you know of who you are. But recently you were named the most likely to overwhelm another person with your energy. So that's pretty. Is that a well-earned award, or what do you think?
I think so. I feel like if you don't come into the situations you're in with energy and enthusiasm for what you're about to do,
Yeah,
I don't know that you really thought through why you're doing it.
yeah,
Right. So to me, it's I like to go to bed at the end of the day with that tank exhausted,
yeah.
nothing left in it.
Yeah, gotcha. Got it. Well, and honestly, if you think about it, especially what we're talking about today, right? We're talking about mentorship. I think that's probably going to get into coaching. I think you and I talk a lot about leadership as well. You know, the context of that award, we were all kind of kidding around and having a good time with it, right? But it's true, and that really is one of your gifts that you bring to the party, right? When I watch you, that's one of the things I think about is how do I show up in meetings because you've got this tremendous energy, this tremendous enthusiasm and positive attitude. So anyway, that's a fun fact, but that's all also just, I don't know what else you'd call it, a cool fact about you and
Oh,
how you approach your work. So,
well,
um,
thank you. Thank you. I want to take that back though, real quick to the Stoic philosophy piece that you brought up, only because I believe those two things go really well hand in hand. Getting into the mentorship piece of that as well,
yeah,
right? Is that realization of what we can control and what we can't, what we can influence and what we cannot influence. It's brought me to this place where why not take on every situation with joy, energy, and enthusiasm rather than the opposite, right? Because we have a choice in how we do that. But as we continue this conversation, I'll talk a little bit more about why that philosophy matters and why it matters between us as well, because you are a huge influence on that part of my life.
okay, cool. Well, thank you for that for one. But yeah, I definitely want to get into that with you. So, well, as we think about mentorship, probably no better place to start than kind of your personal journey. And I thought maybe the first question would be, how do you personally define mentorship? I mean, you hear the word a
Mm.
lot, but what is that? How would you define that from just your perspective?
That's interesting because there's different roles that you get to play that we've talked about in leadership, right? You could be a leader, you could be a manager, you could be a coach, and you could be a mentor. To me, a mentor is somebody because a coach is going to help you with this short-term goal that you have based on specific criteria,
Okay.
right? The mentor, in my mind, though, it's not just the task that's in front of you. They are helping you in your life journey and providing guidance and sometimes giving you some guide rails to live within so that you can experience things the way that you need to in certain situations. So I would say it's somebody who is personally invested in your development as a human being. And I think that's really the key to it is that, and they're not looking to get anything out of it. It's not a personal thing. But the amazing part is that as you're a mentor, I guess the payback is tremendous. You learn so much from working. So I'd say that's a key definition would be somebody who's really involved and bought into what you're trying to achieve and wants to be with you along that journey to help you.
Okay.
I think that's a key.
Okay, gotcha. And also my follow-up question, which I think you've already answered, and I've never heard it heard it stated that way. I think that's great, that the difference between mentorship and coaching is that from your perspective, coaching is more target directed, more short term, whereas mentorship, and it's probably, I want to hit my sales number. I want to be better at discovery. I want to, be a better client success man, whatever that might be. But when you think about mentorship, it's really about how do I be a better human, right? The
Right.
entire experience, not just focused on one area of professionalism or whatever it might be. So, gotcha. Now, that's a good way to think about it. Are you currently a mentor for anybody? Do you feel like you're mentoring anyone? And if that is the case, what kind of inspires you to do that? What makes that meaningful to you and get you and put you on that track?
You and I talked about this before, and I really stole this from more of an exercise. It was from a boxing example, but it's focusing in on the three. Where personally, if you want to develop, you want to have somebody who's mentoring you, somebody who's above you, who's teaching you, you're learning from, right? You need that person in your life that you look up to, and they're going to give you things that you can personally, professionally, emotionally work on.
Yeah.
You want somebody who's at the same level as you, so you can challenge each other with these new ideas, these new things that you've just learned. And then, of course, you want somebody that you're passing this knowledge along to. And that's where you become the mentor to that next level so that you can help lift somebody else up. And so for me, the motivation to mentor comes from being mentored.
Okay.
It's a desire to take the things that I'm learning and help others. Currently, I'd say I have a couple people that I'm fostering some mentorship relationship with, that
Okay.
we started off with some real easy coaching around things, but it's growing into a broader plan on how they develop into certain things, how they manage certain aspects of their personal life, right?
Right.
As well as their professional. And
Right.
so there's a couple people today, but the motivation really comes from it's a pay it forward, pay it back type
Yeah.
of thing. If somebody has really taken the time and interest and putting in the effort to help mentor me,
Yeah.
then I have an obligation.
Yeah.
I feel like I really have an obligation to others to try to help as well.
Yeah.
Um, there's that going to our Stoic philosophy, Marcus Aurelius said, we're made for each other, so either teach or tolerate. And I love that idea. And so it really is this, I have something that I can help teach and grow somebody with this information. And it's really fulfilling to do, but I think it's even more exciting to see people achieve their own success.
So, for yourself personally, how has mentorship made a difference in your life or your career? What role has it played for you?
Oh, I spent some time this summer thinking about this. I'd listened to something in a book and it got me down the path of thinking about mentors that I had had in my life. And so I started writing down all these folks that I believed had been mentors and some of the qualities and interactions that I had had with them to really determine, were they mentors or were they coaches or were they managers or were they leaders?
Right.
Right? Because I think people can play all of those roles in a certain instance, and you certainly have with me in each one of those. But as I looked at it, I had people that were great leaders,
Okay.
but they weren't necessarily mentors. They helped me get from A to B really successfully,
Right.
but they were going to do that whether it was me or anybody else.
Okay.
I've had really good managers that have helped clear the field and get things done for me, right?
Yeah.
And that there's the administrative side. I've had amazing coaches throughout the years as well. But for me, the greatest mentors, and I've had really just a handful that have been actively involved. One is the founder of the company that you and I previously worked with. He has been an incredible personal mentor of mine. I've got a couple people from way back in my history, previous careers that I work with. But the biggest influence today is really when I sat down and looked at that list, Rick. It's why I called you, because you floated up to the top of that list in what I would say in active but not actively engaged mentorship, which
Okay.
means we weren't talking every week. We hadn't talked for maybe 6 months at that point. But inside of that 6 months before I called you up, you had sent me a book. And this is the difference to me between somebody who's being a coach and somebody who's being a mentor. Because when you get a book from a coach, they're saying, hey, I read this book. I really liked it. Think you might, right? That's a good recommendation. But that's not what you did. And that's not what a good mentor does. What a mentor does is they see something, and it's not just I find it interesting, I think you would. It's knowing you, understanding what you're trying to achieve in your life. I
Yeah.
believe this is going to be helpful for what you want to accomplish.
Yeah.
right? And so you sent me one of those, and it was out of nowhere. A box shows up from Amazon, which is not uncommon at our house, but it was a book I hadn't ordered with a note from you. And that to me is the meaningful element of coaching, because when I think about a mentor, it's somebody who's bought into and wants to see me develop and succeed
Yeah.
with or without them by my side. And so the fact we hadn't talked in months, but you had that mindset, it puts you directly into that category of mentoring and focused in on it. Even though we don't talk often, we do now, but we hadn't been. The
Yeah.
influence on it was huge. But I think that goes into, I didn't realize that you were mentoring me when we were first working together until I didn't have it. And that was, I think, one of my bigger realizations, Rick, is what mentorship really was I had you mentoring me in our previous roles. And I didn't know until we weren't working together anymore what that was. And I started to miss it so much that it got me to start focusing in on what does this really mean to mentor and help other people as well. Because again, I didn't realize you were doing it, but there you were helping me with so many different things in my life,
Yeah.
which was really incredible. And so just having this topic today is amazing, but getting to share the impact that you've had as a mentor to me through this conversation is a great opportunity right now, because you really have. And that to me is what mentorship should be.
Well, first off, I just want to say just thank you, right, for the kind words. Deeply appreciate it, right? It means a ton. So thank you so much. And then thinking about your comments, right? So it strikes me that mentorship can be formal or be informal, right? Formal in
Yes.
that, hey, I want you to mentor me, right? And you're right. It kind of gets on this rhythm of, okay, well, let's talk once a week, once every other week, whatever it is. But there's also the informal mentoring that you're doing. And that's kind of I don't know which one's more powerful. Maybe neither. Maybe they're both as powerful, just in their own way. But there is something about watching the way people live their life, and I've got a couple of people that I watch them. Right, I just watch the way they make decisions. I watch the way they conduct their business. One of the things I watched you do, right, is you're an avid giver, and I like that. Right, you give things to people. It means a lot. So anyway, so two different styles of mentoring there, right? One just it's constant, but one was just, what influence are you having on people? And maybe you don't even know it, but all the more reason to conduct your business, conduct your life in a way that you feel good about, right? That you can stand behind, So that's cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It really is. And that's the fun part, right? Because you can go, and I recommend if somebody's listening to this and you don't have a mentor right now, think about some of the qualities that you want to start to possess in your personal and professional life, and look at the people around you and who has those things, who's achieved those things, and go to them and say, I'd like to learn from you. Help me understand your journey, what you went through, maybe so I don't make those same mistakes. But that's a real active role. But to your point, the inactive part is so exciting, because you don't know the influence you're having on people. You had no idea the influence that book had.
Yeah.
When you sent it to me. I don't think that you had any idea when you told me to get the first book on Stoicism that I got, that it was going to have such a significant impact on my entire life.
You're right.
Because it changed my entire worldview and mindset on things.
Yeah.
And it made mentorship not just something that was going to happen, but something really imperative and critical to me as a human being and the people I wanted to interact with, right? Because all we have is this short period of time in our lives where we can help others.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
so it's, how much can we really do to help others and help others see things that maybe they're mistakes that we've made and they avoid them. But yeah, no, you set me on that journey. That's why this is a really fun topic. Again, you didn't know, you had no idea that you were going to have that level of influence on things.
No, thank you. That's incredible. So think about this. Think about the concepts we talked about so far, the mentorship, the coaching, even the leadership aspect, though I think that's probably less about today. It's more about mentorship. And think about, pull us back into the sales world, right? What challenges live and exist in the sales motion, the sales, the sales teams, things like that, where mentorship might be able to be applied and really make a difference? What are your thoughts around that?
Managers oftentimes they're just focused on the administration of the job.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot else that really goes into that. And so trying to get leaders to coach is really a first challenge, because they've got to know in their role what good looks like and how to bridge the gap between what the person's doing and what that definition of good is.
Okay.
And so coaching just inherently becomes a challenge in that regard. And you've talked a lot about it. Time is a big issue when it comes to it as well, right? So in the selling world, coaching is the most critical element to success.
Okay.
And I can't say, I mean, it really is. The ability to see what your folks are doing, to engage with them, becomes so impactful to their success. But there's a layer above the coaching.
Okay.
Right? That I believe that there's an obligation as a leader who really is dedicated to their people, is that you've got to get above the task. And that's what I mean. You've got to sit down with your folks and talk about bigger goals than just the target that they're going to achieve. But what does the target achievement mean to them?
Yeah.
And how do we then mentor them through those processes to get there? Right? It's not just hey, I'm going to help you close this deal and learn a couple of tricks along the way, but you have a goal to achieve something in the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that need to happen in order for you to get there. Your mentor is your guide through that process to get to that point. And so I think that's where leaders can take that more active role in a longer term. As we go back to that earlier definition, a coach is focused in on what's this near-term thing we've got to do, right? Every coach after a football win or loss that you see in the NFL, they're like, yep, that's great. Focused on the next one, right? We're focused on the next game, focused on the next game. And so I think it's that same idea with coaching and developing your team. It's focusing in on how do we grow them, right? Yeah. Not just coach them in the near term, but how do I get them further?
I'm going to take in the bigger picture point of view with someone. And as you talk about that, I think about the book I read not long ago, and it talked about the 5 levels of leadership, right? The first level of leadership being position. You're the VP of client services. So because I work for you, I have to do what you say. All right. Well, that's fine. Right. And that's going to last a while, but that's just the first level, and it doesn't have, and it's not really powerful. But then the next level is building the relationship. That's the second level of leadership. Right. Yeah. And that's kind of where, and it's probably where the difference, because if you skip over that level, the relationship level, and go straight from position to performance, which is kind of the third level of leadership, can you get your team to perform, then you really maybe you are just a coach and you're not that mentor. But if you really want to have a bigger impact on it, and that's what I think about, right? I think about, I want to turn in good numbers, I want to, net retention, gross retention, expansions, all that, those are all important. But if we hit those targets and leave our team behind in 5 years from now, we made no difference, then I kind of don't know what it was all for, right? So I think when you're talking about the difference between mentorship and coaching, again, it's the bigger point, it's the bigger, broader point of view, because the stronger my relationship is with you, the more you're willing to accept my coaching toward whatever those performance outcomes might be.
Absolutely. I think the only addition I put in there is that, as you're coaching that person and as they're working through, the difference comes down to, I'm coaching you in your position to do better at your role. Yeah. I'm mentoring you to become the best person that you possibly can be.
Got it.
Right. And so coaching's great because you need it. It has to be there. Yeah. But it is specific to a role or a task or some project, something that's happening.
Yeah.
But that mentor is trying to help you be the best human, not the best VP of client success or SDR or sales manager, right? They're helping beyond that. And so that's where having broader conversations and taking this back into the sales world, you got to know your team outside of a target. You need to know your team outside of a metric. Yeah. There needs to be some engagement in what it is that you're doing to help them over the long term. And I think the biggest challenge is it goes back to that time element of it.
Yep.
And so when I think about what you can do, like there's so many tools and resources, like we talk about AI and using it as much as possible to streamline, to make more time.
Right.
That's it. I just want my I want our clients to speak to. I want them to have more time to be able to coach and develop their people because information's easier to access and do. I want our internal client success team to be more active with our customers because information is easy for them to get to, right?
Right.
So that they can flourish and they can grow. And
Yeah.
so the more we can make that time element, right? Not so contracted during the day. And we actually provide ways to become more productive and efficient, then we open the door to not just effective coaching, but the opportunity for people to identify where mentorship can really have an impact
Okay.
and drive into that. I think that that's the key. But time is the issue, right?
Yeah.
It's a big factor.
Yeah. Got it. Got it. Okay. What would you say are some of the key characteristics that are essential to be a successful mentor and kind of that
Mm.
mentor mentee relationship? What do you what's key? What do I got to be focused on if I want to be a mentor for somebody?
It's not about you.
Okay.
I think that's the number one thing. If you're going to mentor, it's not about you. It
Okay.
isn't. You're there for the other person. They came to you, but it's not about you. It's about them.
Yeah.
And I say that's important. So it's not wholly focused just on your experience. I'd say beyond that, it's the ability to listen, uh, just to hear the person and where they are, and
Yeah.
not make assumptions as to the placement of where they are in their personal or professional life at any point, but to really listen in and zero in on the things that you can help out with. So I guess to sum it up into a real easy thing, get rid of your ego.
Okay.
Right? It's a boost. Somebody came to you. They want you to be your mentor. That is a fulfilling, right? You're going to get dopamine hits. You're going to get excited. Things are going to go on. You're going to feel really good about yourself because of it.
Yeah.
But after that moment passes, get over yourself because it's not about you. This person came here because they need help, right? And I would say that the biggest thing is anybody who comes to you, be open to that idea. That the hardest thing that people could do is ask for help. And so if somebody's coming to you and saying, I would like for you to be my mentor, don't take that request for granted. Don't brush it aside, right? If you don't think that you're prepared to be a mentor, put some thought into your answer before you give it back, because asking for that help was hard for that person to do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they obviously see something in you that you might not. And so if somebody's asking for you to be a mentor, there's not a structure you need to follow necessarily, right? You need to just get out of your own way. It's not about you. Listen to them, hear what they're trying to achieve, and provide the best guidance you can.
Yeah. Got it. Got it. Okay. Are you able to provide, give us maybe an example of a time where you served as a mentor, especially if it's somewhere in the sales or even client success industry, but a time that you served as a mentor that was particularly made an impact on that person, and maybe that was particularly rewarding for you as well?
Yeah, I've had the fortune of working with a lot of sales leaders over the years in the previous roles that I've had.
Yeah.
Primarily as a coach. I've done a ton of coaching. And
Yeah.
so transcending the coach and getting into the mentorship it has happened a couple of times.
Yeah.
One of the sales leaders of a client that we were with, we had gotten to the end of their certification. They finished doing everything they needed to do, and they were doing great at it. But they came to me a couple weeks after they completed and said, I don't feel like I'm done. And I said, I'm not sure what you mean. They said, I'm not done becoming a great leader yet. I'm not done becoming a great coach yet.
Yeah.
I got this certificate. I went through your program, but I don't feel like I'm finished.
Right.
So can you help me? And first, my response was, well, you never finish. So you're never going to. But the other part was absolutely. And we started working together even more to develop that. And I've seen this person flourish into other roles.
Yeah.
To develop into a leadership position, to go from an individual contributor that they were, the manager that I had worked with and certified them, and then into a director role that they're working through as well. It's been tremendous to see, but that's been a really fortunate element through there. I've also, outside of the professional piece, there's been mentorships with some coaches in soccer and just youth athletics that I've done, mentoring some younger coaches to help them develop the skills to work with these kids and really get the most out of the kids they can. The one with the sales leader, though, I think was really the most professionally gratifying because I knew what they were doing. I knew the role, the world that they were in. And so there was an immediate, easy connection to work with.
Got it.
And seeing them evolve from a coach into a mentor and then mentoring themselves was incredible. Now they have mentees that they're working with.
Coaching's important. Mentoring's important. If I think about it kind of in a pyramid style, it looks like you got to be a great coach, and then you can become a great mentor. I think that's kind of your point of view on it. I would agree with you. So how do you take something like that and scale it across an organization, right? How do you incorporate the mentorship within an organization? What do you think about that?
Well, I think first organizationally, there needs to be a focus, not just in words, but actually in practice around people. And that it is important that we develop and coach them. So if the culture's there, I think that has to exist first in any organization. It's a lot easier to scale at that point because you can start to develop consistency and engagements, right? Because active mentorship is about constant engagement, right? It's just like any element in the sales process. You need to be constantly engaged with your customers. Same thing as a mentor. You need to constantly engage and work with them. And so to scale it, it means evolving, going from coaching being metrics based to coaching being behavior based to then elevating above behavior based coaching into long-term goal achievement for these folks on your team, and helping guide them in different ways. And it's not just going back to, oh, you didn't achieve this metric, let me help you with this piece.
Right.
It's broader than that. You're in an individual contributor role and you want to be a leader. Well, let's take you on a path that allows you to take risks.
Yeah.
Right. To take risks in leadership, to take little risks here, but guided risks where you have a safety net from your mentor to help you. And that, I think, starts to scale it. But organization has to care. They can't just be lip service when they say things. And like Richard Branson, I think, said it best, that you want to train your people well enough, right, that they can leave,
right,
and go anywhere else. But you want to treat them well enough so that they stay.
Yeah.
And so I think when you have that combination of things where you really focus in on professional, personal development,
right,
you get people to a point where they could go anywhere and succeed.
Yeah.
But they want to stay there because the mentorship they're getting, the development that they're getting out of it.
Yeah. That's a really powerful way to look at it. So if I kind of think about your answer to that question, which was really, how do you scale mentorship or how do you create a culture even where mentorship is highly valued? And it's just a part of what we do. First, it starts with relationships. We're valuing people, right? It's not just, and you mentioned this a minute ago, it's not just about the numbers, right? But it's about the people, because people create numbers, right? I mean, a lot of things, I guess, contribute to that, but ultimately people do. If you've got a big client and you retain them and you expand them, there are a lot of things that went right. But one of the things that went right was the personal connection, so people are big. And then I think you said the path was first to focus on outcomes, but then also to focus next on behavior. And then I think there was a third one, or at least I think there was, and I didn't write it down. So focus on outcomes, behaviors, and then
you can start to look at the longer term pieces. That's when that's the transition, right? When you start to transcend coaching and get into mentoring, it's that higher elevated view of things. Right?
Okay.
And it's really, I guess it's more the evolution of you're talking different levels of leaders, right? A leader just in that role, they're going to take you from point A to B. They're going to help you get somewhere. The manager does the task. They're taking care of did you hit your metric, right?
Yeah.
Did you do this piece of it? That's it. That's all they're looking at. And you're going to either know or you didn't. It's a stack ranking. Did I do a good job last week or did I not? That's the manager. The coach is going to look at that metric and go, oh, you didn't do a good job, but here's how you can do a good job. The mentor transcends all of that and says, these pieces are important. We need to focus in on them, but you're on a trajectory to get to here in your life and your career. Let's focus in on the elements that help you do that as well.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. Should. So what do you think about some just common mistakes or kind of missteps that people make as far as being a mentor or even being a coach, right? I mean, what are some things that, if somebody's listening, they're like, man, it really sounds good. I mean, we'll talk in a minute about maybe what it takes. And we've talked about this some already, but what are the missteps, the mistakes that you see commonly that people make?
I think going back to that first rule, which is don't make it about yourself, make it about the other person.
Okay.
They're coming to you to understand your experience and how it relates to them, not to hear your story,
Okay.
right, necessarily. So make it really relevant to them. Otherwise, the big mistake is we make it all about us as the mentor rather than it being about the mentee. And then being actively engaged and making sure that you're checking in and ensuring that you're asking that this is helpful.
Yeah.
Right? You can't just assume that you're giving good advice and that you're providing good guidance, but you also need to check on yourself too. And I think one of the mistakes that people make is that they just assume I've provided this guidance and advice to you for the situation that you're in. And of course it's going to work because I gave that advice to you, but sometimes it doesn't. And we need to be open as mentors to learn from the mistakes that we make too. So I think having too much focus on yourself is one, right?
Right.
That's a big key thing. Not really listening to the person and focusing on your story instead of theirs,
Yeah.
and not staying engaged actively. I
Okay.
think there's making sure that you have and you stay as active as you need to. You think like a personal trainer, right? When you first get started, they're there next to you all the time. But once you get going, maybe it's once a month just to make sure that, hey, you really are staying on track with everything.
Gotcha. So three, one mistake, you're just not present enough. You're just not around enough, which is huge. And that's a big leadership mistake as well, obviously.
Yeah.
Too much focus on you. And then finally, sometimes, it's probably a good practice to check in. Did the advice I gave you work? Was it
Right.
helpful or not? And if it was, great, tell me why. If it's not, please tell me why.
Right.
Because mentors aren't perfect either, right? They're just people,
No.
just like all of us are. So okay,
Yeah. And if we go to those three levels, right? So you're in the middle, you're always in the middle, right? You've got a mentor that's here, somebody that's here, and somebody that you're mentoring. So you're always in a position where you have to be learning
yeah,
to be an effective mentor. You've got to constantly challenge yourself.
yeah,
Otherwise, this person's only looking at you from a point in time perspective,
yeah.
not the entirety of your accomplishments and who you are.
I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you hit that point, that because we didn't hit it anywhere else, right? But if you want to be an effective mentor, you've got to keep growing. You've got to continue on your own process of becoming if you want to be able to help other people. And so for me personally, I'm like, man, I hope I'm not the same Rick I was when we met each other in 2017, 18. I
Right.
hope there's been growth since then, but that's just such an important piece of it, that if you want to be a great mentor, if you want to have a great influence on people, continue to grow, continue to change, continue to evolve. And then, last week we were on one of the podcasts, we were talking about this idea that comes from the Speed of Trust book, one of the Covey books. And it was like, you've got to have two things. You've got to have competency, right? But there also has to be a level of not just competency, but I got to be a good person as well, right? There's got to be character there. Those are the two things you got to balance. So, okay.
Yep, absolutely. And the learning piece couldn't be more important. And you know me, I've got tons of quotes in my brain, but one of the ones that sticks out to me is Mark Twain, right?
Yeah.
Mark Twain said this really well. Not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers. Right?
Hey man, I agree with you completely.
So I think if you want to grow personally, you have to get inside the mind of somebody else. And I think that's what's helpful as a mentor or mentee. If you're in that middle portion of those three levels, you have to consume and get inside I love about books. You're getting inside somebody else's brain.
Yeah.
You're seeing their thought process. It's the closest thing you can get. I can't hang out with Aristotle.
Right.
I can't. But man, I can read his writings and I can get into his way of thinking. Same with Ryan Holiday or Marcus Aurelius or anybody else. I can't have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
But I can get inside their head through their writings.
Let's think about three key takeaways. I always like to give the key takeaways to the audience, right? And let's just say I'm an individual who I want to become a great mentor for people, right? So if they want to become a mentor for people they work with or people they're around, what do we think are the three big takeaways? What are they right now from today's conversation?
Well, I think if somebody wants to get into that world of mentorship, then desire to help has to be present, and empathy and understanding, right? It's not just I woke up today and decided I want to be a mentor. The question of why as well.
Okay.
Right? And I think it goes into that learning piece of it. To me, if you want to be a mentor, it has to be not just because I can give to somebody else, but also because I can learn and then help others with what I've learned from this person. So
one, you've got to want to help, right? It's got to be, hey, I want to help. I want to make a difference in the lives of others. It's not about just trying to stand out or be cool or get recognized. It's about, I want to really help other people, right? Become better. I think that's probably number one. If you're going to do that, then you've got to continue to be a learner. We just talked about that, right? If you want,
very true.
If I'm going to be able to give, I got to be full, right? So and especially I think about this from just the sales industry perspective. If I want to be a great sales leader and I want to be, or even if I'm an individual contributor and I want to be a mentor to those around me, in other words, let my influence flow, right? And impact those around me. I've got to be a good learner, and I've got to continue to have things to influence others with. So I think that's probably number two. And then if there's a third one, what's a good third one? What's a good third takeaway today?
You also want and have a desire to be a mentee.
Okay.
To be mentored.
Put yourself in the place to be mentored. I like that.
Because I really do believe you need to exist in those different areas. You need, as a mentor, you should also be a mentee.
Yeah.
Right.
So if I'm a sales leader, or if I'm an individual contributor, account executive, an SDR, whatever, client success manager, whatever, it's all wrapped up in sales, then I need to put myself in the place of being a mentee. Right. So I've got I have to strike a position of learning. I got to be open to that. Okay. Got it.
And I have to be willing to be uncomfortable as well, being in that position, right? Because it's comfortable to be the mentor. It can be uncomfortable to be the mentee, right?
Remember, knowing, right? Not always is comfortable, but let's say, I don't know, man. I got to learn.
Right. And so I think and I would just say the three words that any mentor needs to be able to really live by and say with absolute truth is, I don't know. Right? You can't also have all the answers because you don't have all the answers. You still need to develop yourself. So being willing to be vulnerable as a mentor, I think, is also really important because it demonstrates the types of qualities hopefully your mentee is trying to gain as well. But yeah, I think you really have to be both, Rick. And that's where, you've been a great mentor to me, which has driven me to want to mentor and work with other people and help pass that along to be in both of those positions, right? Where I have somebody who's really hyper-focused on helping me and I have the ability to focus on others.
Yeah. Got it. Well, cool. Well, thank you, sir, for the kind words, by the way. I truly appreciate it. Also, just thank you for the time today that you spent with us. I know we're busy and you got a lot. I've looked at your schedule and you got a lot of things going on, but great conversation today. And again, thanks for being a part of it. So talk to you soon.
Absolutely. This was great. Thanks, Rick.
All right. Thanks, man.